Hello again, classic car fans. My name is Alex, and you are on the Classic Cars Roast channel. Its reputation precedes it, but does the actual car live up to the legend? Spoiler alert, not even close. We're dissecting the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice. Now, listen up. This car was born during what we affectionately refer to as the malaise era, and boy, does it show. The Caprice is the epitome of everything that went wrong in American automotive design during the early 70s. You might think you're getting a piece of classic American iron, but in reality, you're getting a sad reflection of what once was. As for the market situation, the big iron market is heating up right now, but don't let that fool you. Prices at auctions can range from $20,000 to $40,000. But let's be real. These prices are inflated for cars that are often rusted out or have been modified beyond recognition. The Caprice is no exception. You might find one with a mind-bogglingly low mileage, like a mere 97 miles, fetching a staggering $140,000. Yeah, you heard that right. $140,000 for a car that's been practically preserved in a time capsule. What a joke. First impressions? You'll notice that long, flowing body with those heavy chrome bumpers and a grille that screams, "Look at me!" But let's talk about what's under the hood. The engine options are a real letdown. The best you can hope for is the 400 cubic inch V8, which produces a pathetic 255 horsepower. That's right, 255 horsepower in a car this size. For context, that's just embarrassing compared to the glory days of high-compression V8s before 1970, which boasted horsepower numbers that could actually make your heart race. And don't even get me started on the interior. It's as if the designers thought, let's make it as bland and uninspiring as possible. The dashboard is straightforward, but it's hardly thrilling. You've got your standard two-spoke steering wheel and bench seating. Hooray! And what about those electrical issues? The wiring harness deteriorates faster than your enthusiasm for this car. When you finally get behind the wheel, you're hit with the realization that handling used to be much, much better in cars from the mid-60s to early 70s. The Caprice? It's a boat. A heavy, lumbering boat that struggles to keep up with today's standards. So, if you're thinking about diving into the Caprice market, remember this. It's only original once. Don't settle for a half-baked restoration or a rusty hunk of metal. It's going to take a lot more than nostalgia to make this car worth your time. All right, gearheads, let's delve into the creation story of the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice, a car that truly embodies the malaise era, a time when American automakers were scrambling to keep their heads above water while dealing with a wave of regulations and rising fuel prices. Picture this. The golden age of muscle cars had just slipped through our fingers, and by the time the Caprice hit the streets, it was like watching a heavyweight fighter who had lost all his punch. The last great year for high-compression V8s was 1970, and what did Chevy do? They gave us this rolling disappointment. The Caprice was initially introduced in 1966 as a top-tier trim for the Impala, but by 1971 it had morphed into its own model, complete with a new platform and a design that screamed, "Look at me!" But in reality it was more like, "Please don't!" With its long, flowing lines and slightly more angular design, it had the presence of a heavyweight boxer who'd just hit the scales, bulky and awkward. The heavy chrome bumpers and distinctive protruding bumper guards tried to mask the fact that this car was already starting to show its age, a sad reflection of changing times. What about the engineering? Well, this is where it gets downright embarrassing. The Caprice offered several engine options, but the most potent among them was the 400 cubic inch V8, delivering a laughably inadequate 255 horsepower. That's right, folks. Compared to the roaring giants of the past, this engine was about as intimidating as a house cat. The compression ratio had plummeted to a pitiful 8.5 to 1, leaving enthusiasts like me wondering how on earth this car was supposed to be fun to drive. The turbo-hydromatic 400 transmission was still the best automatic transmission ever built, but even the best can't save a sinking ship. Let's not overlook the interior. The dashboard had a linear layout, uncomplicated, sure, but also devoid of any character. The standard two-spoke steering wheel felt like it belonged in a rental car, not a classic cruiser. Optional bucket seats? Who cares? with mechanical weak points like power steering pump failures and carburetor tuning issues leading to rough idling, you'd be lucky to enjoy your ride without something going wrong. And what about the market today? Well, the Caprice's brutal charm is now recognized, but it's insane how prices have skyrocketed. Once a car that could be had for a song, now auction prices can range from $20,000 to $40,000, depending on condition and originality. Remember, it's only original once, so if you find one that hasn't been hacked up, congratulations, you've struck gold. But let's be clear, this car is a relic of a bygone era, and for many, it's a painful reminder of how far we fell. Would you spend your money on this? Look at this. The exterior of the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice is a classic representation of early Malaise-era design, and let me tell you, it's not exactly a home run. Sure, it's got some long flowing lines that scream, "I'm a big, heavy American car," but when you really dig into the details, it's clear that the charm is mostly skin deep. The body design is slightly more angular compared to its rounded predecessors, but who are we kidding? It's still a lard-ass on wheels. The heavy chrome bumpers are a signature of the time, sticking out like a sore thumb and providing absolutely zero aerodynamic benefits. And those protruding bumper guards? They might as well come with a sign that says, "I'm here to ruin your day." Now let's talk about color choices. The factory options include some pretty standard fare: classic white, midnight bronze, mulsanne blue, antique green, copper mist, and sandalwood. None of these colors scream excitement, do they? They're the kind of colors you'd expect on your grandmother's living room curtains, not a car that's supposed to turn heads. It's as if Chevrolet decided to play it safe and boring during a time when the automotive world was on the brink of something fresh and exciting. Imagine pulling up to a car meet in a mulsanne blue Caprice. Yawn. And then there's the grille. 1971 brought us a wide horizontal grille with integrated parking lights, but it's not exactly a design triumph. It's functional, sure, but pretty dreadful in terms of aesthetics. Compared to the sleek designs of the earlier models, this grille feels like a half-hearted afterthought, much like the rest of the car's exterior design. It's a far cry from the muscular looks that made the earlier models iconic. Now, don't even get me started on the body quirks. The Caprice is notorious for its rust spots: trunk floor, rear quarter panels, undercarriage, you name it. It's probably rotting away. The comically thick door seals are nothing but a sad attempt to hide poor panel gaps. And if you think that's going to keep the moisture out, think again. You'll be lucky if you find one that hasn't succumbed to the ravages of time and neglect. In summary, the exterior of the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice is a mixed bag of mediocre choices and lackluster design. It's clear that this car is more about brute force and less about finesse. If you ask me, it's a hard pass for a car that was supposed to represent American automotive greatness. So what do you think? Would you want to roll around in this heavy hunk of metal, or would you rather find something that actually excites you? Now, turn your attention to the interior of the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice. When you step inside, the first thing that slaps you in the face is that unmistakable scent of vintage vinyl mixed with a hint of mold if it's been neglected. Seriously, if you've ever been in a classic car, you know that smell. It's like nostalgia and regret rolled into one. The dashboard layout is linear and uncomplicated, which is a polite way of saying it's as basic as a bowl of oatmeal. The horizontal speedometer gives you the information you need, but it lacks any flair. Optional clock? Sure, if you want to pretend you're still on time for a meeting that you missed in 1970. What about the radio placement? Oh, it's right there in the center console, just waiting for you to crank up some classic tunes while you marvel at how this car has aged, like milk left out in the sun. And let's talk about steering wheels. You could go for the standard 2-spoke steering wheel or splurge on the optional 3-spoke sport wheel. Spoiler alert, neither will make you feel like you're piloting a spaceship. You're still going to feel like you're in a land yacht that's about to tip over if you take a corner too fast. The seating options are as thrilling as a trip to the dentist. Standard bench seating gives you the ability to fit 3 people comfortably, if you like your friends to be a little too cozy. If you're feeling fancy, you can opt for bucket seats, which, let's be honest, are just a slightly better version of sitting on a park bench. Now, if you're lucky enough to find one with the optional air conditioning and cruise control, congratulations! You've just unlocked the luxury level of the Caprice experience. But don't get too excited. The air conditioning might just blow warm air on your face while you're left sweating and wondering why you didn't just stick to public transport. And let's not forget about the little details like dual ashtrays. Because smoking while driving is a must-have in a car that's essentially a rolling time capsule. It's a shame that common rust spots plague this beauty. Trunk floor, rear quarter panels, and undercarriage are all areas where you'll find these cars have been left to rot. But hey, if you can find one that's in decent condition, it might just give you that brutal charm that collectors are drooling over these days. The interior? It's a mixed bag of nostalgia, neglect, and questionable design choices. Would I buy one? Only if it comes with a full restoration plan. When we talk about the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice, the most unforgivable aspect is undoubtedly its engine. Now, if you've been following the malaise era, you know that 1970 was the last great year for high-compression V8s. And what do we get in this model? A disheartening drop in power that will leave you shaking your head in disbelief. The base engine is a 350 cubic inch V8, code L65, which produces a pathetic 190 horsepower on the SAE net scale. That's right, 190. Just laughable. Torque is a somewhat respectable 350 pound-feet. But let's be real, who cares about torque when the horsepower is so embarrassingly low? Then, if you want a slight bump, you can opt for the 400 cubic inch V8, code L48. This beast cranks out a slightly better 255 horsepower, but honestly, it's still a far cry from the glory days of muscle cars. Torque does get a small upgrade to 380 pound-feet, but again, we're talking about a powertrain that feels more like a gentle push than the exhilarating shove you'd expect from a classic American car. And let's not forget the king of the hill, the 454 cubic inch V8, code LS5. Now we're talking. This engine boasts 365 horsepower and an impressive 465 pound-feet of torque. Sounds great, doesn't it? But here's the kicker. By the time you get to this engine, the Caprice has already become a bloated shadow of its former self, lacking the handling and finesse that made the earlier models so appealing. What's particularly comical is that these engines came with an abysmal 7.6 to 1 compression ratio. This is a direct result of the fuel economy madness that enveloped the automotive industry during this time. Chevrolet was so focused on appeasing the EPA that they sacrificed performance on the altar of fuel efficiency. So, do you really think you're getting a high-performance car? Not a chance. The turbo-hydromatic 400 transmission is the saving grace here. This is the best automatic transmission ever built, hands down. It's like a beacon of hope in an otherwise dreary engine lineup. But the rest of the powertrain? It feels like a cruel joke at this point. An engine that could be a contender suddenly reduced to just another sad attempt at a classic. Would I buy a Caprice with this engine lineup? Absolutely not. It's a shame to see such potential wasted. All right, folks, grab your earplugs because we're about to dive into the nitty-gritty of the transmission and rear axle on the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice, the part of the car that either makes it a smooth operator or a lumbering beast. Spoiler alert, the turbo-hydromatic 400 is the undisputed champion here, and if you think otherwise, you might as well pack your bags and head to the Ford camp. Seriously, this transmission is the best automatic transmission ever built. It's smooth, reliable, and can handle the power like a champ. None of that weak sauce you get with the THM 200 or the Ford C6, which feels like shifting through mud compared to the glorious THM 400. Now onto the rear axle. The 71 Caprice comes standard with a rear axle ratio that can range from 2.56 to 3.31. Now, if you're looking for a car that can actually move, you'll want the higher ratio. Nothing says I can't accelerate like a 2.56. It's like putting a sports car in a grandma's Sunday best. You get that low, lazy feeling off the line, and trust me, you'll be left in the dust by a Civic if you're not careful. But hey, if you're only in it for the cruising and the cool factor, that's not all bad. The Caprice is a big, heavy beast, and the ride is smooth enough to make you forget about the lack of real power. Just don't expect to leave a trail of burnt rubber in your wake. The mechanical setup here is more about comfort than thrill. So what do you think? Is the turbo-hydromatic 400 enough to save the day? Absolutely. It's a great match for the Caprice's V8 options, whether you're rocking the 400 cubic inch V8 or the more powerful 454 cubic inch version. But the rear axle? That's a mixed bag. A higher ratio might give you a fighting chance, but that's assuming you can find one that hasn't been completely ravaged by rust or ignored like a bad stepchild. In the end, if I were in the market for a Caprice, I'd be hunting down one with that glorious turbo hydromatic 400 and a decent rear axle ratio. Without those, you might as well be driving a sofa on wheels. And let's be honest, who wants that? All right, folks, brace yourselves because we're diving into the suspension, brakes, and handling feel of the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice. Now, if you think this car is going to handle like an agile sports coupe, you're in for a rude awakening. The Caprice, like many cars from the Malaise era, was designed for comfort, not cornering prowess. So what's that mean for you? Well, it means if you're looking for a car that can take a corner without feeling like a drunken sailor, you might want to keep scrolling. First off, let's talk about the suspension. The Caprice sports a classic front coil spring setup with a rear leaf spring configuration. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, what's wrong with that? Nothing, if you're looking for a smooth ride down the boulevard. But once you hit a twisty road, you might as well be on a boat with how much body roll you're going to experience. This car feels like it's floating rather than gripping, and if you think you're going to take those curves at any decent speed, you're in for a shock that'll rattle your teeth. Now, let's move on to the brakes. You'd expect a car of this size to have some serious stopping power, right? Wrong. The Caprice features a four-wheel drum brake system, which is pretty dreadful by today's standards. Drum brakes are about as useful as a chocolate teapot when it comes to performance driving. If you're cruising along and suddenly need to stop, you might just find yourself wishing for a miracle. The stopping distances are laughable, and once those drums heat up, good luck getting any sort of consistent performance. My biggest issue has always been the brakes. They just don't inspire confidence. And handling? Well, it used to be better. Those mid-60s classics? They were built to hug the road and give you that thrill of driving. This Caprice, on the other hand, feels like it's lumbering along, trying its best to avoid making any sudden movements. The steering is vague and disconnected, which means you'll be fighting the wheel just to keep it straight. It's like trying to steer a ship with a spoon. Good luck with that. Now, combine all of this with the fact that this car has a compression ratio of 7.6 to 1 and a pathetic 190 horsepower. You're not exactly going to be feeling like a king of the road when you're behind the wheel. The Caprice is more about cruising than conquering, and if that's your jam, you might just appreciate its lack of urgency. But for me, it's a hard pass. If you're after a fun driving experience, look elsewhere because this car is all about the leisurely pace, not the thrill of the chase. When it comes to the reliability of the 1971 Chevrolet Caprice, the truth can be uncomfortably harsh. First off, let's talk about rust. This beast is notorious for rusting in all the wrong places. The trunk floor, rear quarter panels, and undercarriage are practically invitations for corrosion. You'd think Chevrolet would have gotten a clue by then, but apparently they were too busy watching their quality slip away. If you find one of these rolling relics, you better check it thoroughly because a car with a good body is as rare as a unicorn these days. Electrical issues are another sore spot, with wiring harnesses deteriorating like they were made from cheese instead of copper. High humidity environments? Forget it. Those wires are toast. And don't even get me started on mechanical weak points. The power steering pumps have a notorious reputation for failing, and good luck tuning that carburetor. Getting it to idle smoothly is like playing a game of roulette, where the house always wins. Now let's get to the verdict. Despite its glaring flaws, the Caprice has a certain brutal charm that can't be ignored. It's a piece of American history, a reminder of a time when cars were built with character rather than conformity. But here's the kicker. If you stumble upon a well-preserved model, one that hasn't succumbed to the ravages of time and poor maintenance, you've hit the jackpot. Originality is the name of the game, and remember, it's only original once. If you can find a model with low mileage and good condition, snatch it up. So, would I personally spend my money on this? Well, it would have to be a pristine example, and even then, I'd be cautiously optimistic. The Caprice is a classic that demands respect, but it also requires a lot of love and care. If you're willing to put in the effort and you find one in good shape for a reasonable price, go for it. Just know that owning this car is a commitment. Are you ready to take the plunge into the world of classic cars with all their quirks and challenges? Because the Caprice is certainly not a simple affair. So, what do you think? Would you take the risk, or is this one a pass for you? If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a like. Leave your comments and impressions. Your opinion is very important to me. Until next time.